Welcome to ProjectME, the podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Carter, the founder of ProjectME, multimillionaire entrepreneur, former TV newscaster, money-making expert, female empowerment speaker, and self-proclaimed office supply addict. My mission is to take the mystery out of making big money. Every week on ProjectME, the podcast, I'll share success tips, strategies, and stories from other entrepreneurs, experts, and millionaires, showing you exactly how you can achieve your most exceptional life. Now let's get to it. You all know I love sharing my secrets of how I went from $17,000 a year to a multimillionaire. My top essential tool for managing my two successful businesses, plus my crazy life, is my paper planner. But not any random planner, specifically my Inner Guide yearly planner. The Inner Guide planner doesn't just organize my schedule, it helps me map out and discover my goals, dreams, self-care, and keeps my millionaire mindset on track. I want you all to get planning right away for 2019. So I arranged to get a special Inner Guide discount exclusive to my ProjectME posse. Go pick out your favorite yearly planner at inner-guide.com. And at checkout, use the code ProjectME 15% off, and you will receive 15% off your entire order. If you are driving or multitasking and can't write this down, the Inner Guide link and code is in my Instagram bio at ProjectME with Tiffany. And remember, as I always say, you are either planning for success or heading to failure. You are listening to the podcast ProjectME with Tiffany Carter. Hey, my ProjectME posse, you are in for a special treat today. I have Janel Broderick on, and she's a seasoned Washington, D.C. political professional who made her other passion into a side hustle. So just this year, meaning 2018, she created an athleisure wear clothing brand, Tittle Designs, and went for it, which is how much different can you get? Politics to activewear, right? Hey, Janel, how are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I'm so excited that you're on. And first, I just want to say to the audience, okay, how I even got to know Janel and the power of social media and putting yourself out there is that through someone else I follow who is more known for Running Under the Sun is her brand. I know she's done a recent brand change, so I don't want to give a wrong shout out. But we were kind of like Instagram buddies for a while, and then Janel, we're going to ask you how you know her, but Janel sent her some of her clothing to wear. And she did wear it. And I was like, oh my God, that stuff is so freaking cute. And that's how it all happened, right? So I just wanted to share with you guys how some of these people end up on the show so you can see the power of social media, networking online, sending out samples of whatever it is you're selling can end up, attracting much bigger publicity opportunities. So anyway, is that right, Janel?
It absolutely is. Yeah. Joe is somebody that I don't exactly know how we connected on Instagram, but immediately felt a kinship. And she actually purchased a couple things. And finally I was like, can I just send you free things? So really great message, really great girl. And it, of course, was such a great connection to you.
Yeah. I mean, and that's exactly how it is. And when you have a business, whether you're starting or you're years in, you generally are going to be in the red before you see the green, because if you're smart, you're doing things like this. So can you speak to that, Janel?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just to kind of piggyback onto what you had said in the introduction, my primary career path has been in politics. And there kind of came a point kind of right at the close of last year where I was seeking to do something a little bit different. I kind of wanted to elevate this discussion of women pursuing their best selves and to kind of drown out some of the other things that are being talked about. I'm sure you can imagine what that looks like in a hyper-partisan community like Washington, D.C. And so I don't know how I actually arrived at the idea, but I just thought, well, I like words and I like wearing comfy clothes when I'm not in suits all day. I'm going to try to combine those passions. So you're absolutely right, though. When you start that out, you don't realize exactly even how to put budget together. You just know that you're going to explore it and you're going to pursue a couple things and watch, whether or not they pan out. So I operate on a shoestring budget. In fact, the earliest pictures that I have of myself are so embarrassing to look at. It's like me standing in a sweatshirt in front of a sheet and my husband taking pictures of me. So I have made sure to operate as lean as I can. But that's just one example, but you're absolutely right. You're operating in the red.
So you guys, if you want to check her out and the brand out on Instagram, it's Jot and Tittle Designs. And how she says it is, instead of it being little, it's Tittle. So that's a good way to remember it. And I noticed, a lot of your messaging on your adorable like tanks and long sleeve tops, which I'm obsessed with. All of it. But I noticed that quite a few of them have a lot of references to spirituality. Is that a big component in your life?
Yeah, it is. That's just something. I've been a Christian my entire life. But, specifically, as I kind of merge the side of me that seeks to be excellent in my career and excellent in the athletic pursuits that I hold, I'm very aware that I am a human and finite, and anything good I do is probably attributable to God rather than anything great in and of myself. So absolutely fair to characterize it that way.
I'm with you on that. I know I'm not in charge. Ultimately, I'm not, even if I want to think I am sometimes.
Yeah, disastrous things have happened when I take that wheel and mistake who's in charge.
Exactly. So for people who are listening, who are in a corporate job, whether they love it, they don't love it, whatever it is, and they have that kind of little like inkling, like, it would be fun, or I would like to try this out. What do you have to say to them? Like, take us a little bit through your thought process. I mean, you have a very successful career in politics. It's not like, it's not like you were looking to completely jump ship and go into this full force. So how did all of this go on with your mindset and the internal discussion?
Well, I think you point out something wise, which is it's good to probably keep our day jobs while we're exploring what those daring raids will be. I can't remember the exact wording of the quote, but it's something along the lines of make sure that your daring raids are made from a safe base. And so by no means have I quit my day job, or am I thinking that I am going to start selling millions and millions of tank tops and therefore ride into the sunset. But for me, it was a recognition that I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to maybe explore a creative side that at that point I hadn't really explored, except maybe some speech writing. But just that pen to paper and producing an actual product was something that I really had enjoyed in the past. And really it was through a couple of conversations that I had with my husband. And I got to say, my sister is a huge cheerleader, and she happened to be out visiting. And I was kind of verbalizing the struggle with her, explaining that, while I was in my day job, I kind of just wanted to do something on the side, that there was so much about small business that was attractive to me, but that I didn't really know anything. And she, who is a big risk taker and really somebody who doesn't see no as an obstacle, just said, well, I don't understand why we're still having this conversation. Like, get on the computer and find out how you make t-shirts. Like, if you wear a suit during the day and you are athletic after hours, like, that seems like a logical place to start. How hard can it be? And within probably like a half an hour, she had me convinced that this was something worth pursuing. So I would say, listen to your cheerleaders. As you know, there are critics on every corner. I am somebody who is a proponent that, I like the way I'm doing it better than the way you're not. And so we are all going to stumble as we pursue certain dreams and pursuits, but by no means should we let that sideline us for longer than we need to, except to get a better strategy to go back on the field.
Love this. And it sounds like your sister and I could be really good friends.
Yeah, she's great. She's great.
That's something I would say, like, why, whenever someone comes up to me or DMs me or whatever, and it's like, I have a really great idea for a business, and they type it all out. I go, do you realize in the amount of time it took you to explain this to me or type this out, you could have already started researching how to do it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what holds us back, right? I remember seeing a meme that was circulating on social media, and it was a horse that had a bit and bridle on, and it was tied up to like a plastic chair. And the horse was stationary because the horse sees itself as tethered to this immovable mountain. And really, you know, we just know all that horse has to do is shake loose from that plastic chair and you know, he's free. So I think a lot of times we tend to tether our dreams to mountains of doubt when we don't need to.
So what are some things, I'm going back to, you know, my first year in business and my first company, which was a long, long time ago. Yeah. And then my first year in ProjectME, I'm technically still in it, which is a very different business model. So I know how much I've learned, and I have a lot of experience as an entrepreneur. So share with us like some mistakes that you've made and what you've learned in this year, you know, starting a small business.
Yeah, well, boy, I have had so many mistakes. We would be here for about 2 weeks if I listed all of them. But primarily, I think the best model is to start small. One of the mistakes I made initially with inventory was I got a little bit distracted by discount pricing on bulk. And so I thought that I had to order way more than I needed to. And of course, then, as you know, what that means is you're stuck with some of your very first designs, which that you look back at and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm so embarrassed that was like the best effort I could give at that point. But it is, and we all start somewhere. And so on some of those shirts, I've got like 100 of them left, whereas some of the designs that I've done more recently or kind of feel like the brand has grown and evolved a little bit. I'm doing in much smaller batches. So first of all, don't be afraid to start small. Second is, and I know that we've talked a little bit about this just offline, but you know, there is a temptation for somebody who's been successful in one avenue of their life to think that they can't be a beginner. And I think that is probably one of the most detrimental paths you can go down because it's embarrassing, right? You wonder whether or not you can fail because you're going to, you don't want to fail publicly. So you want to do it privately. Well, that, eliminating some of that risk means that you're eliminating some of that reward and the opportunity to learn too. So the second thing I think is just, don't be embarrassed to be a beginner. We all start somewhere. If I'm likening it to running a race, you don't need to run 26.2 miles on your first day of a training plan. You need to be able to probably run about 3 miles, which is where they start you out. So don't be afraid to dream big, but start small and be satisfied with where you're at, knowing that you have put in place a strategy and the steps to get where you eventually want to go.
I love everything you touched on. And in fact, I think it was yesterday, I just did, I do a lot of series of like quickie business lessons in my Instagram stories. And I was saying something about people who want to sell or who currently sell tangible items, such as what you do or journals or mugs, whatever it is. And I said exactly what you said. Don't feel like you have to buy these large mass quantities. The manufacturers, their job is to sell you. So they're going to say, hey, if you hit 500, I can make your cost per tank top, 10 cents less. If you hit 1,000, I can make it 40. And it sounds like, well, and then you start thinking, well, this is what I sell them for, so I could make more money. But when you start out, that is the worst mistake I see people do. And you just end up with a shit ton of inventory that you don't even want to give away because it's not your best work.
Totally. Well said. Well said. Excellent.
Yeah, and it's not your best stuff. So it's okay if your pricing in the beginning, right, is not ideal because you're doing small batches. That's a lot better than wasted inventory that you don't even want to give away because it's not well aligned with your brand anymore.
Right. And I think that plays into this idea of humility. You are not, I don't care how successful you are in your other career and in your day job. If you're just starting out with a new project, you are not going to be knocking it out of the park. So first of all, give yourself a break, give yourself a little bit of grace, but then don't think that you've got some $1 million product that people need to come flocking to. You have to earn you're asking people to open up their pocketbook and to part with their hard-earned money. You need to give them a reason to do that. So if you're starting out and you're priced a little bit lower than some of your competitors, so be it. Earn the right to be at a different price bracket later on.
And let's talk about pricing, because I get asked that a lot in my customized coaching programs that I do, or even after I speak. A lot of entrepreneurs, I've noticed, online entrepreneurs, will add tangible products as like an adjunct form of a revenue stream, right? And they have difficulty knowing how to price things because it's like in a small batch, right? You're not getting as good of a price break. So you want to make money off this stuff. You have to pay shipping. So how the hell did you figure out how to price this stuff?
Well, we go back to the point in the conversation where you asked me about my failures. And so this is one of the things I learned along the way. One of the mistakes I made is I never built in the potential or the possibility of wholesale. And so, the tension where I'm feeling right now is I have some folks who are just so generous, and I am so honored that they would even want to try to sell what I create. But, a couple of them have contacted me and wanted wholesale pricing, and I've recognized that I didn't price myself right. Now here's the thing, though. This goes back to the humility aspect. Guess what? You're not knocking out of the park yet. All of us want to price things that are in the Lululemon range, but maybe we're producing something that is of a lesser quality right now. I think it's okay. Personally, I've come to the realization that for me, it's okay not to be making anything on those margins right now, because at some point you're just trying to get your name out there and you're trying to develop a relationship with the person that eventually you want to be able to sell your goods to. So I've probably learned a lot on the pricing side of things, but, there's no other way except to kind of stumble through all of this and then figure it out a little bit later. It's never going to be a perfect science.
Right. And it's never going to be perfect. But I will say one of the things that I learned, but it wasn't until, of course, 5 years into my first business, because I'm a very stubborn Virgo and was in my self-will, where I would have, looking back, it would have been a lot smarter for me to invest in a business coach from the beginning, because it would have set me up for success earlier on. Not that I still wouldn't have made mistakes. There's no person you can hire that will avoid that. But I wouldn't have made such expensive and novice mistakes. Do you think that looking back, it would have been better to at least consult with someone in that space on things like pricing?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I agree with you 100%. And some of this, you're just sort of at the mercy of the information you can find. And so when I started, again, after a conversation with my sister, the step I was at was entering into a Google box, like, how do you make T-shirts, ? And kind of filtering through and getting in touch with the printer, et cetera. So you're absolutely right that if you can find somebody who's either gone before you or who can provide some feedback and maybe cause you to question and ask yourself some questions that you maybe haven't thought of, that is absolutely the best approach. My own experience was I kind of just like stumbled around until I figured some of this stuff out. But I would greatly have benefited from somebody who knew more than I did. I just wasn't sure where to find that person.
Yeah, I can understand that. At least you were open to it earlier than I was.
Year one, I figured one thing out. I need help. Yeah.
Yep. And that is truly, everyone's like, what is your biggest mistake? Not admitting I needed help or asking for help earlier. My net worth would be probably double right now if I had done that. But you know what? I was supposed to learn that way so I could repeat it ad nauseum to everybody else.
And now we get to learn from you. So it's not wasted.
So a lot of times we can look up, because there's different companies, and of course, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a lot of companies where they do mugs and you send them your logo and they'll make a mug or a t-shirt or something like that. But when you're really looking to make like a higher quality line or a brand, where is a good place for people to start who do have a really cool brand? Maybe they have, 20, 30,000 Instagram followers and they know they already have an audience that would love to have, let's say a ProjectME mug or, whatever, some Boss Babe brand, tank top or something like that. And you already know you have people who would buy it. So where is a good place for people to start researching on how to do that, or where to look for companies that all you have to simply do is send them your design and they print on the material for you?
Yeah, there are a lot. Of course, after looking at it, you realize, oh yeah, there are a lot of companies that do this. But when you're first kind of feeling your way around, it seems like nobody does that type of thing. Depending, there's a spectrum from the person who wants to do it themselves. And then you can go to kind of a wholesaler or a bulk brand. And usually how that works is you sign up to be a customer or a vendor with them, and they make sure, okay, this person's actually got a business license. And then you can buy from them at discounted prices. Now, if you're a small guy like me, those discounts aren't very deep. But if you're somebody who's moving a lot of inventory, that's a better bet for you. But the problem that you're going to run into, and what I'm facing right now, and a problem that I'm trying to solve, is I don't like selling the exact same thing that other people are selling. And when you don't have that chance to kind of be original in what you're buying, unless you're like sitting down at a sewing machine and physically like pounding some of the stuff out, you're kind of at the mercy of your vendors, right? So there are some of those sites, but then you kind of run into the issue of originality. I think one way around that I am going to be pursuing in 2019 is probably going to more trade shows. There are probably folks out there who are making incredible products that probably align with your values and your ethics. And you just, the only thing missing is the connection. You just haven't found them yet. So that's one end of the spectrum, the person that wants to do it themselves. I think the other end of the spectrum is maybe somebody like you. We talked about a mug. That there are, whether it be Custom Ink or some of the Thunderbird, some of these other organizations that are out there that you kind of simply go online, you upload a logo, and they, they'll calculate how much that's going to cost you and give you price breaks. Like, well, Tiffany, if you were to buy 10 of these, it would cost this. If you were to buy 10,000, boy, do we have a deal for you. So I think it just depends on how hands-on that person wants to be in the process. One of the things that I learned was that I needed to try to, because I'm trying to control costs. I pride myself on being somebody who likes to live within my means. I don't want to go crazy. I don't have credit card debt, et cetera. One of the things I tried to do was cut out the middleman, because a lot of times what I was realizing was I was going to a printer saying, I want X shirt. I want this many of X shirts, and I want you to print this on it. And then they were giving me a price. Well, what I've been trying to do recently is I am that middleman. So I am the person who gets the shirt at a different price. And then I am physically, I physically load the shirts up in my car. I drive across town. And then I take them to a printer and kind of talk through the designs and the options there. So I think that goes back to initially what we were talking about in terms of don't be afraid to do things yourself. You're always going to be operating on a shoestring budget. But then also, like, what are the different areas in which I can intersect myself to have more control over the quality and a little bit more control over the product itself.
I mean, that is what you call sweat equity, you guys, is being willing to do those extra things. I mean, she could take herself out of that mix, right? But it's going to come at a price. So it's worth it for you. It's worth it for you right now to do that component. So what I love about Jot and Tittle Designs is I really love that you use unique fonts. It's like, there's a lot of, we all know there's tons of tank shirts and that kind of thing that have cute sayings or words on them. But this is a font, the fonts that you use, I've never seen anywhere else. Are you also like kind of a secret graphic artist? Like, what happened here?
So we're back to talking about my weaknesses again. So design is something that I think is easy for any of us on the outside to say, like, oh, how hard could it be? Like, because it's very easy for somebody to recognize when something looks good, right? But it's a lot harder to create it. And so I have just become a connoisseur of Pinterest and other things that I see on social media. If but by this point I can kind of recognize trends that are emerging. Retro fonts are kind of big right now. So I personally buy the font and then I arrange it the best I can. There's a girl that I work with that helps me kind of put it in the format that the printer needs. But look, you got to be willing, if this is something you love and this is your passion, you got to be willing to learn all the steps. You can't just rely on other people to do it. So I'm trying to become a little bit more fashionable and hip in my fonts, even if I'm not there yet.
Oh, I totally think you're there, but then maybe I'm not fashionable or hip. No, I think that's really important to share, you guys. I mean, here, this is a medium, right? When you are printing designs, words, that kind of thing on items, I even assumed that you must have a passion or somehow learned graphic design, because that's obviously a very important element. But here it goes to show you this is not something you have a knack for, and you still figured it out.
Yeah, and you can tell that from the very beginning designs, whether it's font or whether it's some of the colors that I chose. I personally am somebody who likes to wear black all the time. Well, guess what? The rest of the world doesn't. And so, I'd have to look at things and just get other opinions or say, because I would naturally gravitate to, well, I want this in every color of the spectrum that ranges from gray to black. Well, guess what? Other people like different things. So it's just always a learning curve, and you're trying to teach yourself little skills along the way.
Now, something I always harp on with, I don't care what business you have, is before you make something, and then even while you're making something, and then after you make something, to always poll your audience, poll your ideal customer, even if you don't have this large social following or, you don't have that kind of a base yet. Hopefully you know who your ideal customer is. And if that's your Aunt Betty, or if it's your friend Tracy, or if it's some strangers in line at Starbucks that you can just tell kind of fit your ideal demographic and customer, you need to ask them, what is it you like? What colors do you like? What is it you hate about certain shirts? What frustrates you? So did you do that, Janel?
Yeah, with anybody that I could, that would give me an honest, sense of where I was at. Absolutely. Because, the thing that we all want to hear is, oh my God, it's perfect. Don't touch a thing. Well, that's actually not constructive, and it will prevent you from getting closer to your goal if you think that way. So I send some things, and, honestly, I had a conversation with a girl who, I am 44 years old. I had a conversation with like a 29-year-old once, and she just said, I don't think you're hitting the right, I don't think you're hitting where you need to be on font styles. And, that for like 30 seconds, I was like, oh my gosh, why am I in this? I'm terrible. Why did I even try to do this? Why branch out? And then I very quickly kind of snapped that back in and realized, like, this is exactly what I need to hear. So where is the gap between where you're at and where you need to go. Well, for me, that was just sitting in front of the computer, much to my husband's chagrin, for hours and hours and hours, and just trying to develop an eye that walking into this I didn't have. So I'm hopefully getting a little bit better at it. But criticism, we are taught to think that criticism is somehow a final indictment of where we're at. Criticism can be one of the most instructive roadmaps if we let it be. But if our feelings and our ego, if both of those are all tied up in somebody's opinion about what we're doing, we're not waiting for somebody else to take us out of the race. We're taking ourselves out of the race prematurely.
I just have to say, as being a former newscaster, I can tell that you must write speeches and deal with the press a lot because you speak in sound bites. I'm just saying.
I'll have to develop those a little bit better when I'm trying to get my husband to do things around the house.
I love it. It's so, you have like 25 quotable moments already. That's great.
You're nice.
I know, I'm honest. I'm not always nice. Like you said, I believe in, not being mean about it, but you have to critique. And sometimes I have to be blunt with people and it's not what they want to hear. But I have people be blunt with me. And like you said, it's like my ego doesn't like it, but that's a lot more helpful than someone bullshitting me.
Absolutely.
So how do you figure out this whole sizing thing? Like when you're doing wearable items that come in different sizes, it's like, how do you know how many smalls, mediums? I mean, you could end up with an inventory where now you're out. Everyone wants your awesome, my favorite shirt of yours, which is the Believer shirt. Everyone wants that, top selling, shirt of yours. And now you're out of all the mediums because that's what everyone wanted. And you have like 20, 250 larges now. And you're like, oh shit, what am I going to do with all these?
Yeah. And I hope that your podcasts have been so instrumental and helpful to me that I pray that the people who need to stumble upon your podcast do at the right time. Because this is a really good piece of advice that I did not think through. So the feedback that I got from my first printer, who, to his credit, had dealt a lot with apparel garments, and he just said, women always think they want a small, but then they size up. So where you're really going to need to focus are the mediums and large. And darned if medium is not the hardest size for me to sell.
No,
I don't know what it is.
Oh, I wouldn't have thought that. I would have. I was like thinking, I could see why your manufacturer would say that.
Yep, and it hasn't been the case, and so I've kind of had to readjust. So. One thing we talked about a little bit earlier is when you're dealing with vendors that you're buying different brands from. And one of the things I've tried to do more recently is I'm buying samples. So I will buy like right now I've got about 15 tank tops that I have been wearing and washing, etc. And out of those 15 tank tops, I only think one is something that I personally would wear. And if I won't personally wear it, I'm not going to ask anybody else to wear it. Or beg anybody else to wear it as this business goes. And so for me, buying those, even those before you're even putting a design on it, buying those batches and then seeing, okay, if I buy alternative kind of wears true to size. Or if I buy a different brand, it always runs big. Well, that's really important because if I'm selling more than one brand, or more than one label, and I've got two mediums, well, we're comparing apples to oranges here because the manufacturer, builds their own sizing construct, et cetera. And then you've got two things that maybe somebody's used to buying a medium from you and it fits one way and now all of a sudden it doesn't. So it's really important. And I think that's why it goes back to what we talked about earlier about small batches, because that small batch will kind of tell you, okay, I ordered 5 mediums and they all sold out, but man, why am I stuck with 10 extra smalls? So it's just kind of a stumble in the dark. I'm selling a half marathon sweatshirt right now, that I've kind of applied that same, science to, but you know what? The medium sold out and then the small hasn't really sold that well. Well, on the marathoner, the small is selling, but the medium isn't selling. So it really kind of is just a trial and error on the sizing. But you raise an excellent point. Anybody who is looking to get into apparel should really think through, who their ideal customer is and how to size appropriately for that customer.
And there's a psychology to sizing as well, depending on who you are going after and what market, right? I will agree with that part of the manufacturer who spoke to you, is that, the psychology of the female buyer. Mm-hmm. A lot of us, like, I want to tell myself I'm a 6, but I'm an 8.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I'll buy brands that run either true to size or even run big because they psychologically make me feel good.
Yep. No, that's absolutely right. So I guess it really just, it really boils down to figuring out who that person, and not being, like, what's the worst thing in the world that could happen? So I've got 7 mediums of a shirt where I'm selling out of smalls. Well, figure it out. Like, buy more shirts, buy more blanks, and never take what happens with one shirt or in 1 month and try to extrapolate more information from that than really is there.
It is so unlikely, you guys, and I cringe when I see people online touting that, they hit it out of the park in 6 months and are already making multiple 6 figures. I'm not saying there aren't some unicorns out there, but it is so rare because of all this. There's trial and error. You can launch a course and think it's amazing, but if people aren't buying it, or aren't buying again, then it really isn't that amazing. You don't know until you put it out there. And what I love that you did, Janel, is that you didn't make an assumption. You ordered those 15 samples, yourself, and tried it yourself. You didn't just read the description or take the manufacturer's word for it. You actually, and you had to pay money for it. You had to pay money for those samples. Like, would you just buy a whole bunch of paint to paint your house and not buy the paint samples? Like, that'd be ridiculous, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that right now I'm currently wearing and trying out about 5 different sweatshirts and a few different tank tops. But yeah, and that just goes back to, you got to be willing to figure out what works and what you're asking people to do. Because if you're asking people to spend $30 on a shirt and you don't know if it's going to, survive the first wash, then shame on you. And so you learn that thing. I had a mishap earlier with some of my shirts where some of the foil wasn't quite to the quality of adhesive that I would have expected, that, when it was passed along to me. And I went back to, those purchasers, and I just said, hey, let me make this right. I don't know if this happened to your shirt or not, but if it did, and you're not interested in anything else on the site, let me refund your money. But otherwise, I fixed the problem. I'm happy to send you a new shirt.
And how did those customers respond to that high touch, proactive customer service that you did?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was mixed. I think some people were like, thank you so much for reaching out to me. Others were, hey, no, I didn't even know a problem existed. But again, they appreciate it. And then I think there was one shirt with a different issue. And, the one person I reached out to was just like, I get it. I'll tell you if there's a problem. There's not a problem. And I was like, okay, well, this is my sign that she knows I'm here for her if her shirt falls apart. Because on the other hand, like, people are generous. They get it. You're starting out. They've got grace for you too. But I think, you should always go above and beyond where you can. I try to, for every first time, customer of mine, just write them a handwritten note. And you don't know these people, so you can only get so creative, but you can figure out something unique to say. And I think people appreciate the heartfelt sentiment that comes with that, to say, you're not just a credit card that came through. You're a person that really believes in what I'm trying to do here. And I very much appreciate you. And I do not take it for granted. For 1 second. So I'm still heavy on the customer service because I think it's important.
It's crucial because you are not going to get that high touch point customer service from a big box brand just because they simply can't. When you grow to that large of a size, it's just not going to happen. So that is a true added benefit of working with a small business, is you're getting very personalized, high touch customer service.
Right.
So how did you figure out, a lot of these questions are, how did you figure out? Because I always try to put myself in the mind of the listener.
Yep.
And like, they're like, oh my God, that's so cool. She's being so transparent and sharing all this. So they always want to know more with people like you. So I appreciate your transparency with all of this. For your website, when you are actually selling goods, it doesn't have to be clothes. It could be, journals or whatever the hell it is. It could be makeup, supplements. You need a certain kind of website. You need a Shopify type store. You need a shopping cart. And that's much more complex than just like whipping up a blog. So how did you do this on a shoestring budget? And are you a techie person? How did all this happen?
Yeah, that's another great question. And I want to compliment you because I feel like one of the things that stuck out to me about your podcast is we all subscribe to a lot of podcasts. We hear at the 30,000 foot view, dream big, hustle hard, never be satisfied with where you're at. But it's hard to take that concept and to boil it down and say, okay, but what do I do right now? And one thing that your podcasts have imparted to me anyway is how to actually take the next step. And you did that in a number of them, whether it was on the branding and the niching down, or whether it was putting together, talking about generating a buzz in the old fashioned way of putting together press kits, et cetera. And so for me, it's easy to be transparent because I really buy into the way you teach other females how to do this. So what I did was I initially went through some of the bigger names that handle websites and signed up with one of them and got very far along in the process, had already purchased a year subscription and put all this work into the website. Well, I realized on my first trial that it wasn't giving me, the information that was popping up was saying, hey, continue to this website at your own risk. This is not secure information. And I was like, well, that's a non-starter. Like, I'm not going to move forward with a website that isn't going to protect the information of my customers. So through that process and kind of winding it back and talking to them and talking to other people, how'd you do it? I did end up with Shopify. They have been excellent to me. Their customer service has been great. And they really make it easy for somebody like me who knows where they want to get to, but isn't quite sure how to, what steps to put into place. And so that's what I ended up doing. And then you get your first website and you figure out all of the deficiencies after probably the first 6 or 7 months. And then I ended up upgrading my website with one of the options that Shopify offered after I kind of had identified, what options, the base package couldn't get me. And so I think the lesson to be learned there is don't go spend a bunch of money creating a custom website. Like, first figure out the bare bones, what you need. Okay. And then it doesn't do this. Well, maybe you need that in 6 months. Maybe you don't need it for a year. So that's where I'm currently at. I'm not a techie person, but Shopify made it very easy for me to fake it till I make it.
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of theirs. That's why I mentioned I mentioned their name because that's the thing is we have to scale our businesses, you guys. I have, I'm fortunate to where, my first business that still exists, right? That's made me millions of dollars. That is what's funding ProjectME. I mean, ProjectME is actually profitable, which makes me laugh that I'm profitable within less than a year because that's not normal.
That's great.
But I will say, in saying that, why it's profitable, one, I'm also been an entrepreneur 11 years. So I've already made a ton of the mistakes. I have a head start. And I have the capital. I have the money to invest in things right off the bat, doing it the right way, the smart way, the high caliber way off the bat. But even though I have that money, I still agree with what Janel said. Like, you still want to scale. Like, my website's is a WordPress site. I mean, my ProjectME with Tiffany, it's a WordPress site. I'm going to scale that. That would not be smart. Why? Would not be smart for me to spend 15, 20 grand on a customized site. It's not necessary anymore, really.
Yeah. And it goes back to that idea of just be willing to start where you're at. Like, we always want to read to the end of the script of where everything worked out and somebody was successful. Well, in order to get there, you had to kind of bumble your way through the path that life put in front of you.
So you can create all these awesome designs, which you have. I mean, seriously, you guys, you have to go to Jot and Tittle on their Instagram, and you can shop right from their Instagram too. I mean, they're truly unique. And I'm someone who's a big buyer of shirts, hats, mugs, everything that has sayings. Like, I'm obsessed with all of it. And they really are unique. So how are you marketing this? How are you getting traffic? How are you getting buyers? Because you can create the coolest thing in the world, but if no one knows about it, you ain't gonna make shit, guys.
Yep. Yeah. Well, 2018 was kind of a year of exploration and learning as much as I could. What I'd really like to do in 2019 is to try to figure more of that out. You mentioned Instagram. That's primarily where I'm at right now. And then, as everybody starts to learn, you need to develop that email list. And so that is going to be my focus in 2019. Hopefully in January, I'm going to sit down and really put pen to paper on what are all of the different avenues through which you can sell. And what is the best fit for what I'm trying to do. Not everything is going to be applicable or even helpful to where I'm trying to go. So, currently on Instagram, website, and email list.
Yeah. And you guys, there's a different sales funnel for different types of businesses. So, for example, for my business, that's, heavy service based, I'll be launching, e-courses, that kind of thing. That's a different sales funnel model than the model that you would use for tangible items, like what we're talking about with her designs. That's an actual store.
Visual.
It's visual. It's a store. That's a different type of a sales funnel. And there certainly is a right way and a wrong way to get that customer acquisition for this. But I will say, Janel, you started out in the right places. You started out in the free places. You're in the free zone, right?
Yep.
And the free zone is a necessary zone. They call it organic marketing. I mean, that's the free zone. Maybe you are doing paid ads, but I haven't seen any yet.
Yeah, I've just done a couple that have been pretty specific just because I'm trying to test it out. I don't know, you mentioned the different sales funnel. I don't know if that's the best route for me. But I'm just going to test it out in little, in bite-sized chunks.
That would be a good term. And don't do the Facebook ads alone if it's not something you're not an expert in. You can lose a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Just PS. Just want to say that. So since we are airing this in time for people to buy holiday gifts, housewarming gifts, and I love personally, and you guys feel free to steal this from me, I love giving people New Year's gifts, which I really think Jot and Tittle Designs is like a perfect gift for New Year's. And when I say New Year's gift, it's a gift of inspiration, empowerment. It's something to go this is cheers to the new year, new beginning for you to crush your goals. And it's something unique I do. I do it with my students. I do it with my clients. And it's not something everyone does. So most people are like, oh, that's cool. But I do think your designs and the sayings and the mission behind it work really well for that. So what are the best places for people to go and shop your store?
Yeah, I'd say the online website or the store that way, and that's www.jotandtittle Tittle designs.com. That's probably the best way. And of course, you mentioned Instagram. You can follow me there. Most of the things that I'm selling are linked in the pictures that I provide. And there's a link in the bio as well.
And I'm putting you on the spot here, so I'm risking the answer being no. But are you offering ProjectME people any discount or no?
Yes, ma'am. So 20% off the entire cart, and the checkout code will be ProjectME.
And is it case sensitive or it doesn't matter?
No, it lowercase. We can do lowercase.
Lowercase. You guys, 20% off the whole cart. And she was frank with you in the sense of it's not like it's her first year of business. It's not like she's swimming in profits, but she understands, right? You get that in order to put your brand out there and have exposure, you have to spend money to make money.
Yep, absolutely. And really, it's just an honor if people like your stuff. I don't take that for granted. And so, of course, 20% ProjectME, lowercase. I'll put that in there through the end of January, actually.
Oh, awesome. Well, see, then you guys can even do those New Year's gifts, even like I do, well into January. You know why I came up with that, Janel? It's because
a good idea.
I came up with it. Truly, it was out of such a selfish reason. It's because I got so overwhelmed with because I do really enjoy buying gifts for people, but I got so overwhelmed with the whole Christmas card thing, buying the gifts, keeping track if someone celebrates Hanukkah or Christmas, not wanting to offend anybody. Maybe they don't celebrate anything. And also it was overwhelming to do it by a certain date because the end of the year for most entrepreneurs is their busiest time of year. So I was like, wait a second, why don't I do welcome to the new year gift? And that's how I got around it.
Yeah, that's genius. It's a great way to cut through the clutter too, and really have people appreciate you giving them a gift after they've already opened everything else.
Right. And the response is oh my God. And then every time, like your shirt that'd be great for it, you guys, I don't know if it's your best seller, but I mean, I want it to be. Well, she has a warrior, a shirt that says warrior. That's kick-ass. I'm looking at your feed right now. And then she has my favorite, which is the believer shirt. And I mean, just think about every time someone goes to pick that up, whether it's to work out or to wear it, they're thinking, yeah, this is my motto for the new year. It's kind of a cool tie-in that people have.
Yep. Made for you. Emphasis is always on the woman buying it.
And lastly, I do want to touch on this because we have a similar passion and a charity in common. One of the main organizations I support is Children of the Night, which helps women escape from being on the streets with whether it's human trafficking or they're pimped out. And I noticed that you have a percentage of your sales all going to an organization that helps to end human trafficking. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. That's just kind of who I am and something that's always important to me. And so I tithe 10% of all of the sales to Life for the Innocent in 2018. And they are very involved with rescuing all of the victims of human trafficking. I don't know all the stats off the top of my head, but they do a really good job of kind of breaking that down, because the enormity of something like that, when you're talking about millions of people around the globe that are, still enslaved, we think of slavery as something that is kind of a dirty marker in our history. But by and large, we don't see a lot of it still. But when you're thinking about the magnitude of that, it can become overwhelming. They help kids and women and men and boys escape, and then provide not only food and shelter for them, but education and help to get them into safer environments. And so that's just important to me. And that's who I chose to donate to in 2018. But it's an honor every time you guys buy anything from me to write that check at the end of the month. Actually, I do it every 2 months just to give myself a little bit of time. But to be able to write that check and to send that off to them means that every person who buys one of these shirts is helping to reverse that heartbreaking trend that we've got so many around the globe that are still experiencing slavery.
I love that. And I'm going to say it again, you guys. It's not like she's rolling heavy in the cash yet. It's her first year of business, and she's still being of service and donating 10% of the proceeds. And that's something I'm a huge, huge believer in, is that we have that generous spirit, that generous heart, and we give, and you always do end up getting it back like 100-fold in return. Well, Janel, this was such a pleasure to have you on. I really loved hearing all the ins and outs of this business and the obstacles that you have stumbled upon and have risen. And I just wish you a beautiful holiday season. And you guys, all of the details, the ProjectME code, her website, the Instagram, all that is also going to be in show notes. It'll be really easy for you to find and to shop.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. It's just been such a pleasure to talk to you and to talk about this passion. And I look forward to having conversations with you in the future. So thank you again.
Thanks, Janel. Bye.
Take care.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please write a 5-star review on iTunes. Not only will this make me super happy, but it will allow more listeners to find our special show. Simply help me help others.